Oh, welcome. It's been a while. I'm Giovanni Hall Art, and today I'm just going to be working on a little animation of Moo Deng and watching a live stream, watching a podcast of Ron Mango. Something to have in the background while working. Yeah, let's get into it. All right, let's go.
Bada bing, bada boo.
Some friend groups have tiers for emergencies. One friend group said online they have specific codes, like the cops do for their emergencies. 971 is, it's urgent. I'm at the store. I'm trying on an outfit and I'm waiting in the changing room while there's a line forming outside to see if I should buy these clothes and you need to help me. 951 is, you just found out that the person you went on 2 dates with has a full-blown family. 911 is, you just found out that your dad has a side full-blown secret family. Obviously, those are very extreme examples, and I'm sure it doesn't apply to high schoolers. But the 10th graders that Carly hangs out with all have their little emergency system. And that is to basically just mass text all of their friends telling them, my life is falling apart, you need to help me, and quote, I fucked up. March 19th, 2024, that's exactly what 14-year-old Carly Gregg texts all her friends after school one day, and they start panicking. Recently, Carly had just been all over the place. She's been drinking Germex, the hand sanitizer. Technically, the whole thing was a prank. They were like, hey, I dare you to drink the hand sanitizer as a joke. At least it was supposed to be a joke, but then she actually drank it.
What?
Yeah, and there was that incident where she brought a knife to school and then she stole the exam answers off the teacher's desk. If she's saying this is an emergency now, it's probably very serious. What's going on? Carly responds, I fucked up. I need help. I need help. When one of her friends asks, why? I can't tell you why. Another guy friend asks, should I call 911? To which Carly responds, you can't do that. One friend hops up on his bike and starts making his way over. Another friend, she gets dropped off by her dad because this seems very serious. And when she gets to Carly Gregg's front door, Carly's standing there. She does not appear to be in the middle of an emergency. In fact, she seems calm. So what was all of that? Carly asks her, are you squeamish? I need you to not freak out. I'm not going to freak out. What's going on? You're not squeamish, right? Have you ever seen a dead body? Carly's friend shakes her head no, and Carly brings her into her bedroom where she looks down, and on the ground of 14-year-old Carly Gregg's bedroom is a dead body. We would like to thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. They are volunteer-based and provide free medical care and humanitarian aid to thousands of children, really any child in need. This episode's partnerships have also made it possible to support Rotten Mango's growing team, and we would also like to thank you guys for your continued support as we work on our mission to be worthy advocates. As always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. A quick disclaimer, the defendant in today's case has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Other doctors disagree with the diagnosis, but just to be clear, just because someone has a particular mental health condition does not automatically make them violent. So with that being said, let's get into it. There's a part of trials that tends to go viral, and that's typically when defendants hear that they have been found guilty. In some cases, it might be just the raw human emotion. I mean, you're capturing this very intense, life-altering realization in real time. I mean, you witness a person processing the fact that their life as they knew it is effectively over. Maybe it's like a satisfying feeling you get as a viewer, knowing that justice has been served. And sometimes these guilty verdicts become much more intense when you factor in polling a jury. That's a thing. That's a thing, and it's quite brutal if you're found guilty of your charges. Because the judge reads the final verdict of guilty, then they're going to make you sit there while they ask each and every juror to respond to, juror number 2, is that your verdict? Is that your verdict? 12 times you have to listen to, most likely in a guilty verdict, each juror reconfirm, yes, you are guilty. You will spend the rest of your life rotting in prison.
So polling a jury is just confirming.
Yes.
Double check. Okay.
It's not done in every case, but when it is done, it's pretty brutal.
But why do they do that?
One of the sides will request it in advance. So it takes enough time, and I think the repetitive nature of it, I think it really starts feeling emotionally volatile for some people. And there is nothing you can do but watch as your fate has been sealed. You can't beg the jurors to change their mind. You can't even talk to the judge. You also can't go and hug your family that's sitting behind you in court. You just sit there and you listen. For 15-year-old Carly, she has to sit there and listen to 36 different, is that your verdict? Yes, guilty.
As to count one, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Beginning on the first row, ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Yes, sir. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict?
At first, with the judge reading guilty for her 3 crimes, she almost has no reaction. And then with each juror's confirmation, her face gets more red. It's getting scrunched up. She starts sobbing. And in the span of 5 minutes, you see her go through a whole chain of emotions. She hangs her head. She looks like she's trying not to act like this is happening. And then her whole body is shaking from crying. And then she just stares from the judge to the jury in almost this can't be happening. I don't believe this is happening face. There's just no way. She keeps looking at her family sitting behind her, but they can't do anything for her. Just 6 months ago, 14-year-old Carly Gregg is student of the year at her high school. She skipped a grade and was one of the highest academic achievers in her entire school. Everyone said she had a lot of friends and was quite popular. What happened since March 2024 and now September 2024 that she is now sentenced to life in prison at just 15 years old?
You say there's 36 juries?
There's 12 jurors, but she's convicted of 3 counts of a crime.
Oh, so each person are asked, okay, 3 times each.
3 different crimes. She is found guilty, and each juror has to be asked to confirm 3 different verdicts.
Wow, okay.
Now, Carly Gregg, she rarely gets into trouble. She's the smart kid. Her mom's the math teacher at their high school. Her name is Mrs. Smiley, and she's like a fan favorite with the students. Carly's friends, let's call them Jason and Jenny, they start getting worried for Carly recently, March 2024. That's when everything starts feeling very unsettling. In fact, she's just acting very strange, more risky with her life. That morning in March, her whole demeanor feels off. She looks jittery, secretive, like she's hiding something. She's alone in the cafeteria and she spilled her milk. It's just weird. It feels like she's smoking weed again. And this is very unlike Carly. She was never really into drugs. This is the same girl that scored a 30 on the ACT already as a sophomore. That's higher than 93% of all test takers. And now she's smuggling in knives, getting caught, going to her teacher's desk, stealing and taking pictures of the exam, getting caught passing that around. This is just not normal behavior for Carly. Jason and Jenny, they come up with this plan. Today, they're gonna distract Carly and tell her mom everything. It's gonna be an intervention. Will Carly be mad at them? Probably if she finds out that it was them, but this is gonna help her in the long run get her act together. The plan is Jenny is going to take Carly on a walk around the school, distract her after class. Jason is going to go visit Mrs. Smiley's classroom and tell her what he knows. And Jason's smart with it. He even tells Ashley Smiley, Carly's mom, don't confront Carly about it today, that she's hiding weed vape pens in her bedroom. I just don't want her to know that it was me and Jenny that told you this. He thinks as long as Mrs. Smiley listens to him, everything will be fine. Everything's going according to plan. School is dismissed, and as Jason bikes towards Carly's house to check up on her after school, he sees police cars all parked outside. That day, from the morning the high school bell rang, a series of events would take place that would end in murder. Carly crawls out of the storm drain. You know those little parts next to the sidewalk that has a gaping hole in the ground? And you get nervous anytime your dog walks anywhere like 10 foot near it? You can crawl into those. It's not advised. It's for storm water to drain so that your street doesn't get flooded. But
You crawl out underground?
yes. It's cramped, it's confined. There is typically a ladder. It's typically very dark, very cold. There's probably lots of rats and very uncomfortable. It's gonna smell incredibly foul down there. And by the time she's crawling out, there's people waiting for her. She's soaking wet. I mean, considering the circumstances of, crawling out of a storm drain, she's remarkably calm. She looks a little confused, a little uncomfortable around these strangers, but that's to be expected when you get arrested and your hands are getting swabbed for gunshot residue. And she's short. She's like maybe not even 5 feet tall at 14 years old. She's got this short brown bob. She's wearing a Nirvana shirt. And she asks the officers, "What is this?" It's GSR. It shows which hand you shot with. "Oh, okay." Obviously, you fired with a pistol, correct? Yes, sir. She's very polite, almost kind of nonchalant. Like, if you were to go to the hospital and they ask you to take your weight, it's uncomfortable, you're not feeling the best, but you're being polite and you're letting them help you. They ask her, which hand did you shoot with? Oh, I don't remember. And as they're swiping her hands, she asks, is my stepdad okay? I don't know, baby. I can't talk to you about that.
Why are we expected to use the same shampoo for straight, wavy, and curly hair? Like, your hair deserves better. Stop wasting time and money on hair products that don't work for your specific hair type. Most people misdiagnose their hair type after using the wrong products for years. Your dry ends and unwanted frizz might actually be wavy hair. Pros' hair consultation helps you discover your unique hair type, and they listen to your hair concerns like greasy roots, frizz, or dryness. Then they'll create the perfect custom formula to meet your unique hair goals if you've got 1A locks or 2C waves. The before and afters speak for themselves. Flat hair, volumized, waves, defined, curls, moisturized. So it's not you, it's your hair products. Upgrade your hair care to pros.
Yo. Did you pick up milk?
Do you see milk in the fridge?
No.
Then I didn't pick up the milk.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Annie. You don't have cash? Let's go to the ATM.
I got a kid who wants someone who speaks Russian.
My Russian is terrible. I can't even roll my R's.
No.
Я просто хотел тебе предложить. Ты хочешь быть эксклюзивно со мной?
15. Cash up front.
Deal.
Deal.
If I get married to an American, I wouldn't have to go back to Russia.
Okay, so who should marry?
And do you, Nora, take this handsome gentleman to be
My wife!
Да я был с ним 2 недели назад буквально. Он не женат.
Well, you did tell them, right?
Иванжан, открой дверь, пожалуйста.
Vanya, should I call 911?
Ты женился на какой-то проститутке?
What?
Это она? Иван!
Like, what do you do to get all of this?
I am telling you, you do not know this guy.
Vanya?
It's a frog marriage.
That's how a cop responds.
I don't know, baby.
Yeah. I do think he doesn't mean it strangely. I think it might be a southern thing. This is in Mississippi.
Is my stepdad okay? I don't know, baby. I can't talk to you about this. Here, I'm just... Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Okay. Oh.
The police step aside to talk to each other out of Carly's view about what just happened, discussing which facility they're going to take this teenage girl to. And one cop turns to the other and says, she doesn't even know about her mom. She's over here asking about, is my stepdad okay? When police were called to their house, they had found Ashley, the geometry teacher, Carly's mom, dead. Her stepdad, Heath, had been shot and Carly had been missing. She was found in the storm drain, not even like an hour later. So what happened? People don't know what happened. The police need to figure it out. And all the answers are in this small camera that's hiding inside the refrigerator. It's not normally placed inside the refrigerator because why would one need a camera in the refrigerator? That's very odd. It's normally up on a high shelf in the kitchen so you can see the whole back door. You can see the kitchen. You can even see a little bit of the living room just outside. But they find it behind stacks of water bottles in the kitchen as if someone was intentionally trying to get rid of this camera.
In the refrigerator.
Yes. Because I guess the police would look in the trash.
Is it like a Ring camera type of?
Yes.
Okay.
And the police import the footage and they start watching. And I'm sure it's strange for authorities to watch footage from inside someone's house. It's just weird when you watch someone move about their space. This is publicly available. I'll insert it in the video, but it's odd. Because these are actions that people have when they think nobody is going to perceive them. Their faces are usually different too because they're not trying to smile or make certain faces because they're around people. They're just more relaxed. The police click open the first file from that day. And at this point, this is what the police know. Ashley and Carly may have had a tense car ride home, considering one of Carly's friends told Ashley that she was having problems with weed and had a burner phone, and she had weed vape pens hidden in her bedroom. And it's likely that Ashley Smiley, the mom, was going to go look for those weed pens in Carly's room once they got home. And they know that Ashley Smiley, the mother, the math teacher, is found dead in Carly's room. So it's safe to assume that she's in there right now when the video starts playing, because she's not in the video. You see Carly letting the family's 2 golden retrievers in from the backyard, and she's walking in through the back door, but her demeanor is interesting. She's almost sneaking back in. She's walking through the kitchen, but she's careful about each step, trying to listen while quietly going towards the living room. She's standing in front of the living room. She pokes her head out to the right, then to the left, and then she listens briefly and then starts swiftly, quietly moving towards the left. She comes back into frame holding something behind her back. Does she hear someone? Is it like a possible intruder? What's going on? At this point, the dogs are roaming around freely in the house. Their tails are wagging. They're completely oblivious. They're having a good time. Is there an intruder? It doesn't make sense, right? You see Carly go from the left side of the hallway, pass by the kitchen to the right side of the house, holding what appears to be a gun behind her back.
Then, it's on the camera?
Yes. You don't see the gun that well because she's hiding it, but it appears to be a gun because right afterwards you hear a loud gunshot. Then dogs start pacing. Then you hear a high-pitched squeal of some sort. It sounds like someone had been shot and they're squealing. Then another 2 rounds go off. And for a brief moment, everything in the kitchen freezes, and then the dogs start pacing. The dogs are so anxious, they're confused, they're trying to figure out what's going on. Carly walks back into the kitchen, calm. Like gunshots did not just go off in the house.
Is she holding the gun?
Behind her back. And she sits in one of the counter stools facing the camera, and she places whatever was holding behind her back down on the counter, but you can't see it, and it seems intentional. And she grabs her phone and starts messaging people. Her demeanor is very bizarre, considering 3 gunshots just went off in her house.
She's hiding, right? From the camera?
Yes.
That's crazy. So she's aware the camera is recording right now.
Yes.
Everything she does is on camera.
Mm-hmm.
That is so bizarre.
She hides her whatever behind. She starts getting on her phone, and her demeanor is very strange. One of her pinkies is in her ear, digging in her ear while she's messaging her friends. That's just how casual everything seems. And then you hear someone kind of moan for help, but I think because of where the gunshots were, it sounds like someone's last breath, but it almost sounds like a humming noise, like someone's singing. It's a little unsettling considering when you know in hindsight. Carly perks up. She listens. She's calm. She's like an FBI agent almost. If I were watching a movie, I would think this kid is like an FBI agent at the scene of the crime, ready to go. She's alert, cool, calm, collected. She's not pacing around like the dogs are. She just grabs the gun from behind her back and then gets out of there. Briskly walks to the right side again. In fact, the dogs are looking at her, trying to figure out what to do. They're terrified. Their tails are down. They're very panicked. And by the time that Carly comes back, her mom is dead.
There's no gunshot, right?
No. Carly goes to the kitchen, tells the dogs it's okay, and leads them back out to the backyard. She does not look fazed, even in the slightest. It looks like she's just another kid back home from school. But she's texting her friends, it's an emergency, and one of them comes over. And she asks, have you ever seen a dead body? Are you squeamish? I need you to not freak out. Do you want to see one? She had been shot in the face. She shot her mom 3 times in the face. Then she asks her friend, can you wait outside in the backyard so I can, quote, I put 3 in my mom and I'm going to put another 3 in my stepdad when he comes home. She had even taken her mom's phone and texted her stepdad, you almost home, honey? Question mark. Carly Gregg, the little girl of the math teacher in high school, the one that skipped a grade because of how intelligent she is, she killed her mom in cold blood and tried to kill her stepfather too. So what the hell is going on in this house? I don't understand. She doesn't end up killing Heath, her stepdad. She ends up shooting him. The bullet grazes his trap muscle on his shoulder, and he manages to wrestle the gun from her. And she flees the house, hiding in the storm drain.
What's going on with the friend? Do we have any details on what happened?
Traumatized. They didn't expect to see a dead body, and now they're like, Carly has a gun and she's telling me to wait in the backyard, so I'm just waiting in the backyard because I don't want to be shot if I'm running away. I mean, they didn't say exactly like that, but it's pretty clear that's what happened. Yeah. Now, when a 14-year-old kills anyone, one of the first questions is, okay, yes, but are they insane? Because any other option doesn't make sense. 14-year-olds aren't inherently evil, are they? I mean, how can they be? They look so young and naive. She must have some debilitating mental condition that makes her legally insane, right? Carly kept this journal where on March 12th, so a week before the incident, she writes, I think I had a psychotic break earlier. The whole ordeal was quite silly. I actually spoke with one of the voices in my head. Well, I didn't hear them until earlier today, but I only do then. My particular friend and I were practically screaming bloodthirstily and ravenously. I mean, thank God physical confrontation was not fruitfully possible. I sound crazy. I need to get back into the habit of journaling. I think it's good. I haven't quite decided if I will bring this stupid thing to my therapist tomorrow. I just can't decide. Then stuffed into that journal is a loose piece of paper that's been folded up, and there's writing in the middle that reads, Anywho, I don't think I'll make it any longer. Then scribbled all over the paper is, please help me, please help me, please help me, in different fonts, different types of handwriting. I'm sorry, please help me. When asked about this piece of paper, Carly claims she has no idea what anyone's talking about, making it seem like she does not recall writing anything like that. Then another page in her journal reads, What do I believe? There is no God. Heaven and hell are fake. You don't need family. Writing your own destiny, loving yourself, don't belong to anyone, never be alone, go to your place of comfort often. Sometimes you must blend in but never forget. It's okay to be evil. Sometimes you must jump into the dark to truly see the light. Death is inevitable. Another one reads, Water, fire, earth. I choose fire. It's powerful, beautiful, and deadly. Those are the traits I desire, so I choose fire. Another one reads, Do I have schizophrenia? Am I having a psychotic break? And one that reads, I know one of y'all will read this journal. She then gives a guideline on gaslighting. She writes, Take advantage, happy hurting. Life's greatest illusion is innocence. And there in the middle of that page is a pencil stabbed hole where she writes she stabbed it like Tom Riddle, which is Voldemort from Harry Potter, whose most famous line is, There is no good in evil, there is only power and those too weak to seek it. Allegedly, Carly thought one day she was going to be famous for making a nuclear bomb. I don't know. So it's a lot to unpack, and maybe the prosecutors did not want to unpack it. They offered Carly and her legal team a plea deal. Plead guilty for shooting and killing your mom in the face 3 times and for shooting at your stepfather. Plead guilty and we will give you 40 years in prison. She'll be 54 when she comes out. Or the other option is go to trial. It's your choice. The ball is in Carly's park. And the judge tells Carly, think very clearly about this, because either she gets the 40 years, she could be 54 when she gets
Hour 35, that's a personal best.
Let's go.
Let's go.
out, or the jury could either acquit her, meaning she gets no time, or the court could sentence her to 2 life sentences for murder and attempted murder and tampering with evidence.
She can probably get out even earlier than 54, no?
They said 40 years, no parole, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Carly stands before the judge and rejects the plea deal. That would probably be the 3rd worst choice in her life. The first worst would probably be shooting her mom, then shooting at her stepdad, and now this.
All right, Miss Gregg, did you receive that recommendation of 40 years?
Yes, sir.
And it was your choice and your choice alone to reject that recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor.
She now has to convince the jury, even with all that footage in the kitchen, the dog's going crazy, that she is insane. She was lost in her mind in those moments. She also has to sit there and listen to Heath, her stepdad that she tried to kill but was unsuccessful, be alive, and sit on the witness stand to talk about what happened that day. Heath Smiley is Ashley Smiley's husband, Carly Gregg's stepfather. He testifies, and his testimony has been quite controversial. I will say he does appear to be quite lethargic during most of it, emotionless even.
That was Carly screaming, and you heard me holler, "What's the matter?"
But remember, this trial is actually exponentially speedy. I mean, most murder trials, they take years for the prosecution and the attorneys to get through all the evidence and discovery and all of that. This happened 6 months after the crime. So it's very fresh. Everything is incredibly raw still. He could be medicated. He could be emotionally guarding himself to protect himself. There's a lot of reasons he could not be emoting the way we want him to. But on the stand, he talks about how he and Ashley got married a few years ago in 2020. They met in 2019. The way he describes his wife is super nice, real smart. He's not Carly's biological father, but he felt like she was his biological daughter. The whole family, they were still in this honeymoon phase. They would go out. He would take Carly to karate lessons, guitar lessons. And then obviously everything changed March 2024. He walked in through the door after work and saw a gun go off right next to his face. He was maybe in the door 3-4 inches. The gun was about a foot from his face. The bullet grazed through his shoulder trap muscle area. And Heath's 911 call is played for the court where he does not sound like himself. The 911 operator kept calling him ma'am. He's very incredibly distraught. It sounds like the adrenaline is overpowering and he can't even control his breathing. He isn't even able to tell the operator his address. He's just screaming. He's screaming that his stepdaughter had shot him. He managed to take the gun from her, but she ran out the back door. And Carly is the most emotional during the entire trial when she hears Heath's 911 call. Probably more emotional than when she is being read her final verdict.
Really?
Yeah.
What was her emotion?
Just snot dripping down her nose, sobbing.
Your daughter tried to shoot you? Yeah. Shooting at me. Where is she at? She ran away. How old is she? 14. 14?
I mean, I can see potentially why. I mean, when Heath discovers his wife Ashley is dead, he sounds a bit like a wounded animal. I mean, I say that to paint a picture for you. It's pretty heartbreaking. He screams, she killed her mom, she killed her mom. She's dead on the floor of my daughter's stepdaughter's room. She's on the floor. When the dispatched officer arrives at the house, you can hear Heath screaming inside the house. He's finally able to open the door. He can barely stand up straight. Once he gets out the front door of his house, he falls onto the ground. He has his back up against the wall. He can barely talk.
Where's your wife at? She's dead on the floor in that room.
The officer runs inside, looks for Ashley, and when he walks out, Heath is laying on the floor on the porch.
She shot me in the neck. But it's okay. Does she still have the gun? It's on the kitchen counter. I think I went in the back door. She tried to shoot me.
And 6 months after this, Heath is on the stand testifying, and a lot of the questions were about Carly's mental state prior to the incident. He says Carly's biological dad was just not a great person. He terrorized both Ashley and Carly, that Carly told them that whenever she went to hang out with her biological dad for required visitation custody, he would do really questionable things, like blow smoke in her face, do drugs in front of her. At one point, she reportedly told Heath that her biological dad forced her to drink a beer when she was 12. Ashley would do anything for Carly. They had such a good relationship, but because Ashley had lost a child previously to a genetic condition, it seems like perhaps she was a tad bit more on the worried parenting side, which I mean these days isn't the worst thing. Also, since her former ex, Carly's biological dad, struggles with drug usage, it seems like Ashley was very sensitive to anyone doing drugs around her, especially her 14-year-old child, for good reason. Ashley is in fact so scared of her first husband, the biological dad, she keeps a loaded weapon under the mattress of her bedroom. That's the one that Carly grabbed to kill her mom, which Heath said he was shocked by. He said that morning was as normal as it could be. I mean, everything was normal. Nothing was even slightly different. At one point, Heath states after the chaos was over, he realized the garage had a camera set up inside the garage. He went home after being released from the hospital. He found the SD card. He tried to copy the card onto his computer, and he also called the police. But instead of copying the videos to his computer, it moved the videos to his computer. Then he found the camera hidden inside the fridge. He called for the police for that as well. He did everything to be cooperative, but apparently the vibe he got back from authorities were that they were treating him strangely. The authorities gave him what appears to be lectures on, quote, tampering with evidence, because he had copied the files from the SD card. And he said that he stopped working with the authorities and hired an attorney at that point. He states that he loves Carly like his own biological child and believes the only reason she would have shot him was perhaps she did not recognize him. Maybe she thought he was an intruder or something. The prosecutor...
So he saw the footage, right?
Yeah.
The same footage you just described?
Yes, but he's saying she must not have been in her right mind. The prosecutors ask Heath to identify the person in court today that shot at him. Point to that person in court. They do this often. And he looks at Carly, points, and he smiles. And she smiles back. And they both smile at each other because Heath is in full support of his stepdaughter. There is a lot of discourse about Carly's stepfather, primarily because there's this one clip that's going viral where Heath is in court, he smiles at Carly, and I don't know what he mouths, but it sounds like he mouths, "I love you" to her. Which, I mean, stepdads love their stepdaughters, but I guess people just thought it was weird. So there is a lot of discourse about the stepdad. And I do want to mention that this is not normally something I would include in one of our episodes. I think it's really dangerous to talk about these types of theories that have no proven basis yet or ever, but it's just such a big part of the discourse of the case that it would be nearly impossible to bring you a comprehensive overview of what happened without including it. And a lot of it has to do with the interactions during the trial. Now, I don't think most of us are trained behavior analysts, nor do we know these people personally, nor do we have access to their personal devices. So keep that in mind. These are just theories circulating on the internet. Heath Smiley is not a known suspect of any sort of crime. In fact, he is a victim in this case, unless there's any new developments that suggest otherwise, which I don't know if there will be. But until then, he's honestly just a victim, and these theories are a little unhinged sometimes. So there's this wildly circulating theory that somehow Heath is involved in the murder. Again, just to reiterate, this is a pretty high profile case. If there was evidence he was involved, I would have to hope that law enforcement would have found it, and I just don't see why they would do anything to protect Heath. But the theory that is mainly based on gut feeling and court clips, some netizens think there's no way that Heath is able to forgive Carly for something like this. There's just no way. There have been arguments by netizens who state even if that was your biological child that killed your wife, it would be hard to forgive. And they're saying, like, as parents, I'm saying this. I'm not a parent, I wouldn't know. They say, even if this was a stepdaughter that you raised from birth since she was a day old, it would be hard to forgive. But they state it's even stranger when you realize that Heath only met Carly and Ashley in 2019. So Carly was maybe around 10 years old, 11 years old. I'm sure they've bonded. I'm sure there's a strong relationship, they say. But they argue that it's just not enough time, they believe, to form a bond so strong that you would want to stand by her side through all of this. Not only did she shoot and kill your wife, she tried to shoot and kill you. A lot of parents were commenting saying, even if my biological child that I birthed and raised from the minute that they came out of me, if they tried to shoot and kill me, I don't know if I could forgive them. Would you really have such a strong bond that you raised after 4 or 5 years, this child, that you would, rather than your own self-preservation? People are saying if she's free, she could easily try to, quote, finish the job, if you will, and kill him. Netizens are also confused by the fact that there was a protective order put in place where Carly and Heath were not allowed to communicate for Heath's safety. But Heath, the stepdad, requested it for it to be lifted. He has been speaking with Carly ever since while she's been in prison awaiting trial. They talk nearly every day, it appears. Then there's the whole thing with the SD card being copied onto his computer and the police having to have a conversation with him about tampering with evidence. He lawyered up after that. Some netizens thought that in addition to everything that else is strange, the SD cards is strange. What if he wanted to make sure there was nothing on there? But just to clarify, Heath was never considered a suspect. A few other parts that netizens point out. Firstly, the fact that he's forgiving of Carly and that he's supporting her. But later when the defense asks him what his wedding day to Ashley was like and how Carly was that day, he says Carly was just her normal, wonderful self all day. A lot of netizens think just the way he describes Carly to them does not come off as very honest, but overly perfect. They feel like he fully works for the defense in trying to help her. He's bringing up stories of how smart she is, how friends depend on her. She's so sweet, so happy, so bubbly. She loves the dogs. One netizen writes, "There is no way she was this calm, peaceful, and sweet all the time. She was taking medications, getting therapy, self-medicating. I mean, something was clearly wrong, so what is this?" One netizen writes, "Defense will love his testimony. No justice for his wife. Only Carly, I guess." Others state that Heath smiles more when he talks about Carly than when he talks about his own wife, Ashley. I did notice it, but I did notice it once someone pointed it out. So I don't know.
And when did you and Ashley Smiley meet?
It was the spring of 2019.
And at some point, did you and Ashley Smiley end up marrying each other?
We did in June of 2020.
Where'd y'all get married?
We actually went up to Gatlinburg when things opened back up after COVID.
Tell us about yours and Carly's relationship before March 19, 2024.
We were always good. We laughed and played and messed around, loved video games, and took her to karate stuff until she kind of got tired of that, and she started going to guitar practice weekly, so I was taking her to that every week.
One netizen writes, "I don't think I'm accusing him of anything inappropriate, just stating that he's acting very strange. It's weird. Defending the child you only knew for 3 years that tried to kill you?" Now, others argue that not everyone has to be skeptical of innocent people and victims. They argue, yes, these types of cases have happened before, where stepdads will groom the children and then might even try to get them to kill the mom, or a foster child will, there have been some cases of that. It's a lot. But they argue, even when he's talking about their family life, it just seems like a man who actually enjoyed his new life with his family and his new kid. He talks about how he and Ashley surprised Carly with their second golden retriever. It just sounds like very fond memories for him, which they find enduring that he and both Carly are able to think back to those positive memories. Other people are saying, this is just unfair that you're accusing him because first of all, he's a victim. There's no proof. And if there was, law enforcement would have found it by now. And second of all, it's almost perpetuating this narrative that stepfathers cannot love their stepchildren without being creeps. So they're saying it's just, why can't we just be nice parents and not be misconstrued as creeps that are trying to groom their stepkids? I mean, they're both smiling when he's talking about it. And if you listen to the footage they released in court, you hear him get shot. Yeah, in the garage footage, you hear a bang go off, and then you hear screaming, and then a few more bangs go off, and then you see Carly and her friend running, jumping the fence from the back door. Also, the 911 call, I mean, that was a very intense 911 call. I just don't know how someone would fake that kind of emotion. If he did, that's an Oscar-winning performance. As for getting an attorney, it makes total sense. They say you don't want to talk to a police officer without an attorney present, as well as the fact that they took his ID and didn't give it back to him. And they kept giving him these weird lectures of tampering with evidence when, if he was suspicious, why would he even call them about the SD cards? The police weren't even looking for SD cards. They didn't even know the existence of these cameras. So it's not like, where are the SD cards? He called it and then willingly gave it to them. So they're like, no, he's never even been considered a suspect. These group of netizens comment, if you have ever had severe trauma or PTSD, I mean, you know not to judge this man. You detach, you learn to compartmentalize the trauma. Another one reads, this is a trauma response. It's called compartmentalizing. Stop victim shaming and blaming. Another one reads, everyone really needs to stop with the accusations against the stepdad. If you don't think that detectives and prosecutors haven't already checked out that angle, you're nuts. Further, if there were something there with the stepdad, her defense attorneys would be using it as part of her defense because then she could say that she was coerced or manipulated into doing these things by another adult. Another suspects that he might just be very medicated right now. And I will say, I think it would be really hard to fake that 911 call. One netizen comments, the grief in his cries for his wife is earth-shattering. Or, I don't feel that he's covering up or hiding anything. I think this is a man destroyed. He's just numb. He's answering all the questions asked. That's my opinion. Others think not only do they feel bad for Heath, but it just shows how good Carly is at manipulating people. She fooled her friends, she tricked her mom, her psychiatrist, and now her stepdad, especially because he's in such a vulnerable state. He might feel almost, to a degree, trauma bonded to Carly. In a sense, Carly might be the only other person that went through what he went through that day. Or maybe even helping her will give him a purpose to try and offset the bad, some netizens have speculated. Or perhaps it's the guilt of missing your wife and knowing that perhaps Ashley would not want her daughter to be rotting in prison for the rest of her life. One netizen comments, I feel he's being manipulated by Carly and is making himself look like a creep for defending her. Which many netizens can see. Just the way he talks about Carly, it sounds like someone who has been charmed almost. When he talks about how intelligent she is, he states, she was always complaining to us that kids constantly bug her for help with schoolwork because she can do all of it so easily and she can explain it to them better than most teachers. And she got so tired of them coming to her for stuff. She loves school, but she was almost bored with school a lot of days, even though she was in the advanced classes. She was a light year ahead of everything they're teaching. You know, anything new she picks up and just wants to be a step ahead of the teachers. At one point, the defense attorney asks, in all the time that you've known Carly, would you describe her as callous? No. Calculating? No, not except with math. And he smiles, and Carly smiles. So Carly's grandparents have also been in attendance, Ashley's parents, it seems. She smiles at them whenever she comes into the courtroom. So people use that as proof that Carly's just very manipulative, it seems.
Do we see the grandparents' reaction?
Yes. Not in the high emotional moments, but when she smiles at them, and they're typically stoic and smiling back. Yeah. There might be a legal aspect to all of this too. Some people say, no, he's not defending Carly because he is like doing something weird with Carly. It might be because he's trying to protect himself. Technically, the gun used to shoot Ashley is registered to Heath. Heath knows that prior to this, she was seeing a therapist and Carly was mentally unstable. Some netizens believe that could fall on Heath. He could get some sort of charges for having his gun so easily accessible because recently with all the other happenings, the school shootings, that has been the case where parents know that their children are mentally unstable and still let them have access to weapons. They also get charged, which rightfully so. But some people think he's doing this defense of like, no, nothing was wrong, so that he doesn't get legally held potentially for having her have access to these weapons.
Wow.
So some people are saying it's not a weird thing. He's doing this for his legal thing. And that's probably why he also got an attorney. I don't know about this theory. I don't know if the police would have charged him with anything, but a lot of netizens have been pointing it out. Also, there were a lot of guns in that house. There was also a shotgun and an AR unloaded, but in the closet. But still, one netizen writes, hearing that the gun was unsecured under the bed, it feels like all of this could have been prevented or reduced with proper gun safety. So that's one of the theories. And then I will say a good chunk of people fall into the category of, I don't know, but it's definitely weird. They comment, very weird reactions from the stepdad, but I guess people deal with trauma differently. I don't know. One of the reasons that this case starts going viral recently is not just her interactions with her stepdad, whom she tried to kill, but Carly has very interesting court appearances, and she just behaves a bit interesting. A lot of netizens have opinions on how she looks, what she's wearing, how she cries. So people point out that she was arrested in a Nirvana shirt, and her hair was in this almost sporty looking bob, but now she's got this bob with bangs. She is kind of leaning into this doll girl type of aesthetic. I don't know. Obviously, nobody expects her to show up in court with her Nirvana shirt on, but some netizens think that she's clearly dressing in a way that is very reminiscent of Catholic schoolgirl outfits. Plaid dresses, collared dress shirts, cardigans with gold buttons all the way, frilly sleeves. Some netizens comment, who thought dressing her up like an 8-year-old would be believable? I don't know. The outfit makes her look more evil. The little Catholic schoolgirl thing does not work on us. They also say with her hair, the short hair with the bangs and the outfits, they say she looks like the girl from the movie Orphan, which makes this creepier. But some commentators think it's working. They write,
My hair has always been straight, but with like a slight wave, a bit of frizz, some dried ends, which according to TikTok means naturally wavy hair that just isn't treated right. So I took the pros quiz and it told me my exact hair type and what products would help my hair lean into its natural form. My custom formula is perfect for slightly wavy hair. It's like definitely more moisturizing than straight hair products, so it gives me some nice like volume and shine, but it's not as heavy as curly hair products, so it doesn't like make it greasy and weigh it down. Just gives me like perfect natural waves that stay all day. I can't even think about how much time and money I would have spent on trial and error products in order to figure this out. Pros truly just handed me perfect hair on a silver platter. Okay, I'll stop. Try Pros though.
Their way to shop for groceries.
I mean, she's got.
Oh, thank you, Alia and Andre. Sorry about that. I was too busy animating. I missed the chats. But thank you. Appreciate that. I just try and animate Moo Deng. Sorry about that. Sometimes we have to look at the chat when I'm animating. I'm so focused.
That little pumpkin face, this little bob. She looks very innocent. Others make comments about how the defense is working overtime with her styling, saying, surprised they didn't just put her in something pink with unicorns on it. Yeah, so that's been a huge topic of conversation. I will say her baby face is kind of out of this world. She does look a lot younger than she is. And defense attorneys, to their defense, will coach their clients on what to wear, how to dress. But more so than her attire, I think it's her demeanor. I mean, the first day she looks a bit more distressed, but other than that, most of the time she looks like she's seen crazier stuff, like more exciting stuff. She looks like she's in the pews of Easter Sunday church sermon. She looks kind of disinterested. She's very emotional during Heath's 911 call when that's played. She's pretty engaged when Heath is on the stand, and she's the most locked in when the defense expert, the psychiatrist, goes up there to talk about how mentally unwell she is.
What is she doing? She's just locked in?
Locked in. So fascinating.
Like, what are they saying? Just talking about her?
Just that she has potentially schizophrenia. She's bipolar. She was not of her right mind.
Over the last 5 years, she thought about 60% of her time in a depressed state, about 20% of her time in a hypomanic state, and about 20% of her time in a normal mood state. So I gave her the diagnosis of bipolar 2 disorder.
The locked-in is weird. She's fascinated by how someone perceives her, how this expert perceives her. There is an authoritative look to her when she's locked in. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous, what's happening? Like, I don't understand these words he's saying. It's almost analytical studying, which is it was a little creepy at times, yeah. It was a little unsettling. She does giggle and smirk a lot during the trial. There was one time.
What?
Okay, there was one where the prosecutor's expert went up there and he's talking about, yeah, I don't think she's crazy. I read through her journals. I spoke with her. I'm a psychiatrist. I don't think she's crazy. And like the whole Tom Riddle thing, that's from Harry Potter. And he's talking about the connections with Harry Potter and all these villains. She seems to have an obsession with villains. And she just smirks. A full smirk.
Tom Riddle is from Harry Potter series, and he turns into Lord Voldemort, and he's evil. And so in her journal, she talked about Harley Quinn, war crimes, Tom Riddle.
Sometimes she's giggling with her attorneys. I don't know if they're writing something, but she'll just giggle. She scribbles something on a piece of paper, her defense attorney, and I don't know what the context is, but she thinks it's hilarious and she just starts giggling. It's just not appropriate. Another point of frustration for netizens is she really only cries when someone calls her a victim of some sort. She just can't help but cry. And there are other times when her defense attorneys talk about how close she is with her mom. She starts blinking rapidly. Her lips get thin and she starts nodding up and down like, yes, we were. A lot of people feel like it's very forced. You tell me. She also does this thin-lipped looking down shy smile when the defense talks about her grades and how smart she is. Like, oh, stop, I'm embarrassed. Or when the defense talks about how she's not a deranged child, she's not a troubled child, she does these strange little no head shakes and her lips are thin, like she's trying to cry and she just shakes her head no. it feels like she's very performative for the jury. And it just doesn't feel natural. A lot of
it's not working.
No, a lot of the comments read, me when I force myself to cry. Sometimes she'll have these moments where she just looks straight into the camera of the live streaming court stuff where it just feels like she's breaking the fourth wall. The whole thing is unsettling. She'll just stare straight into the camera. Many netizens also point out that she just cries at weird times. I mean, she could be in her head, but she'll just start busting out into tears while they're swearing in a witness, like a random witness, like a police officer, who's probably not going to say anything crazy, but she'll just start crying while they're being sworn in. It's just very odd. On top of that, when a state witness, so her opposition, if you will, if they state something about her that puts her in a negative light, she'll just sometimes smirk here and there. And then she'll like take these side glances to her stepfather who's sitting in the court supporting her, and then they'll smile at each other. And her behavior is definitely unsettling, and it's not working in the defense's favor because their whole argument here is that Carly is insane. They state that prior to this, they're saying she is like the poster child for someone who might have a psychotic break. They're saying that her biological father is bipolar. Now, the state brought up an expert who said, well, I went through her father's medical records because I was allowed to, and I saw that he had a 1-hour consultation with a doctor and they diagnosed him with bipolar disorder, bipolar 2 to be exact. But 1 hour is not enough, and that same doctor prescribed him Adderall, which is an ADHD medication. And this psychiatrist for the state is saying that is not common. When you have someone with bipolar 2, you would be very, very hesitant and careful to prescribe a controlled substance like Adderall. The defense also states that her dad is schizophrenic, and they state that that means Carly has a higher chance of being schizophrenic, but he has never been diagnosed, at least from what the state could find, of having schizophrenia. They state that prior to this, Carly was seeing a therapist here and there for a few weeks because she was just having bouts of depression. She just became very lethargic. Her mom was really worried about her. She would go see this therapist like once or twice a week, never mentioned hearing voices. But suddenly in prison after the murder, she reports that she's been hearing voices since she was a little kid. The state's experts argue that's actually not very realistic. People don't start hearing voices when they're 7 years old. Maybe it's an internal monologue that they mistake as a voice in their head, but these hallucinations don't come in that early and that consistently. They also state that Carly was put on antidepressants. She was first put on Zoloft, and that made her feel like a, quote, zombie. They switched her medication to Lexapro. They think that that medication switch also caused a psychotic break in her head. The state is arguing Lexapro usually causes self-exit ideations, not homicidal ideations. So this just doesn't make sense either. Like, are we really pulling the Lexapro defense? Because it doesn't really work. The defense also states the weed, the self-medicating, was also very volatile for her mental state, which most people argue it's just weed. She should not be doing it at 14, but it's just weed. And a lot of comments were saying if she was doing meth, cocaine, crack, all these things, I might be like, okay, yeah, that could probably cause a psychotic break. But weed, people were saying it doesn't make any sense. They also state that coupled with sudden disappointment that she knew her mom was feeling because on the way home, she found out that her mom found out that there were vape pens in her room. She didn't want to feel that disappointment because she loves her mom so much that it rendered her into a state of psychosis, and then she murdered her mother in a state of psychosis. So would I say out of all the insanity defenses that I've researched before, is this a good one? I would say it's probably one of the worst ones. Especially for a 14-year-old. I feel like you could have done an okay job considering her age.
What do you mean you could have done an okay job?
Because she's already 14. She's been in therapy. I feel like there would have been a lot of ways for a good defense attorney to try and spin a whole story about how she's unwell. I don't think it would have been believable in the end, but these defense attorneys were very questionable.
Really?
Yeah, I think they were probably, one of the worst defense attorneys I've seen. And the biggest thing is, the defense states that before Carly shot her mom, she blacks out, doesn't remember coming home, okay? She gets home, blacks out, shoots her mom. She comes to in the storm drain. She crawls out of the storm drain. But the state points out the fact that in the body cam footage, her hands are getting swabbed, and then she confirms it's a pistol. She asks about her stepdad. So they're asking, Okay, how could you black out and still remember those things? Additionally, her psychiatrist is stating that she is having these nightmares where she hears gunshots go off. And this is in prison while she's awaiting trial. Now, the state argues, if you blacked out, you don't remember. So why would you have these PTSD-like dreams about it? If you don't recall that, if that's not something that you did, how could you have nightmares about it? And then also they argue that her journal, it sounds like someone who wants it to be read. It sounds kind of like a little kid reads a book on psychosis and then writes a journal about it.
And the journal was written all like recently?
Yes.
Like how recent was it?
Within the oldest entry I think they brought up into evidence was maybe a few months old. Oh, there was one in 2023.
Distortion?
So like 11.
Plain distortion of the girl or the animation? But yeah, it's crazy stuff going on.
Months before she allegedly wrote, I'm a schizophrenic person. I'm crazy. I miss the comfort of being sane. I just want to find true love. Then maybe I wouldn't be so crazy.
Yo. Should we pick up milk?
Do you see milk in the fridge?
No.
Then I didn't pick up the milk.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Annie. You don't have cash? Let's go to the ATM.
I got a kid who wants someone who speaks Russian.
My Russian is terrible. I can't even roll my R's.
No.
Я просто хотел тебе предложить. Ты хочешь быть эксклюзивно со мной?
15. Cash up front.
Deal.
Deal.
If I get married to an American, I wouldn't have to go back to Russia.
Okay, so who'd you marry?
And do you, Honora, take this handsome gentleman to New York?
Да я был с ним 2 недели назад буквально. Он не жена.
Well, you did tell them, right?
Иванжан, открой дверь, пожалуйста.
Vanya, should I call 911?
Ты женился на какой-то проститутке?
What?
Это она? Иван!
Like, what do you do to get all of this?
I'm scared. I need help. Something along those lines.
I'm not
and
sure
the
what that
psychiatrist for the state
I'm not sure what that means, but okay.
was like, again, it just sounds like every symptom in the book that she's trying to replicate into this journal. It sounds very villainous. All these things are a little bit odd. And the way that she writes about hearing voices, she writes, it's silly actually. The state psychiatrist says, if you've met anyone with auditory hallucinations, they would never trivialize it. They would never say, it's silly actually, because these are real to them. It's so traumatizing. It's so haunting for them. They're terrified of these voices. They're not gonna downplay it and say, I'm just so silly, I hear these voices.
I see.
Yeah. And also, his whole argument in support of Carly was trying to argue that it seemed like Carly was out of her mind. She didn't even recognize him when she shot at him. That's how he says it. But she did text on her mom's phone, "You coming home, honey?" Like, it's very clear that she's luring him in. Additionally, one of the main notes of her psychiatrist that was seeing her prior to the murder was that Carly reported being angry with her friends because they weren't as serious as her. The psychiatrist wrote she never reported hearing voices. She was just kind of rude to people she felt were not as smart as she was. She felt like she was losing patience with her teachers. It seems like she gets off on being better than others. She would tell her therapist in almost a bragging way that she was reading Crime and Punishment, which is about a main character who is obsessed with his own intellectual superiority, that he starts planning to murder someone to get away with it. And he does in fact murder someone, and his whole life starts unraveling. He descends into a very scary state of paranoia, self-loathing. He's being hunted by a detective till he's ultimately confessed and is sentenced to hard labor. And they report that she does seem to have these very strange wants to appear a certain way. But that was about it. Other than that, she seemed a little depressed. The state argues Carly likely heard her mom in her room finding her vape pen. That's why she was listening. Then she walks with purpose quickly directly to where the object is that could kill her mother. In her mom's room is the gun under the mattress. To me, that sounds like an intact motor function. It shows coordination and it suggests a specific intent. She did not walk to the kitchen and grab a banana, which is something that many psychotic patients would do, like when they're in psychosis, in a state of psychosis. A lot of the times when people are in a state of psychosis, they don't harm others. They end up harming themselves by accident. She walks directly to where the sole object is that could kill her mother, retrieves it. In a very methodical manner, she peeks around the corner while hiding this object. These are high-functioning things that take several areas of the brain. It's almost predatory, in my opinion. That is the statement of the state's expert. And even with the 2 shots to Ashley's brain, he believes it takes marksmanship that shows a high level of brain functioning to shoot someone in the head like that. He says if he were to describe the crime, the psychiatrist states the word would be diabolical. And in fact, he states Carly is actually quite charming and manipulative in a sense. He says she's very likable. I liked her. I don't like saying any of these things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So with the closing statements, the defense states, if Carly is so diabolical, so smart, so callous, why is this so dumb? Essentially, they ask, nothing about this looks like a well-planned out scheme. Much of what she did seems senseless. Why plan to shoot your stepfather and invite friends over? That makes no sense. Why wouldn't she immediately just run away? I hope none of us are ever judged by the worst moment of our lives, but rather our whole lives as a whole. And when you look at the facts of this case as a whole and the picture of who Carly Gregg is on the whole, you'll see this wasn't a bad kid. This wasn't a kid who was enraged. This was a kid experiencing significant mental health issues and health issues that were running in her family that we know are hereditary. This is a kid that was compliant with the medication that she was put on. However, that medication caused her symptoms to worsen. And while she was having a state of psychosis, in that episode of acute stress, she lost herself in what was the perfect storm. I'm asking you, for those reasons, to please find Carly Gregg not guilty by reason of insanity and finally quell this storm for Carly Gregg and her family. The prosecutors state, the defense wants you to believe that from the time she took the dogs out, she blacked out. Well, that's a real convenient time to be blacked out. But she still has the wherewithal to enter her mom's code into her phone and text someone specific, and that specific person is her stepfather, Heath Smiley. When are you going to be home, honey? They go on to argue, yes, she has mental health problems. Quote, those records state she has anxiety and depression. Ladies and gentlemen, it's indisputed that anxiety and depression don't cause you to kill someone. As for her hearing voices or having lapses in time, you did not hear that from any provider that's ever seen Carly before the crime. Was it a perfect plan? No, nobody ever said it was perfect. That's why we're here, but that is not insanity. In the end, Carly was found guilty. They are appealing her sentence, but a lot of netizens have a lot of thoughts, even with this verdict. The netizens who believe that Carly should have been found insane, not guilty by reason of insanity, they write, damn, some of you guys are brutal, she's a baby. She doesn't even have a fully developed frontal cortex. Things happen to children that develop these behaviors. They're born innocent. She's remorseful. It happens sometimes. 14 is a child. I know she took a life, but her brain is not fully developed. We're watching more and more children being treated like adults. I'm torn. The crime is really bad, yet we are dealing with a child physically, mentally, and emotionally. Poor Carly, the way her stepfather smiles at her and has a good relationship with her. I remember I started seeing a psychiatrist at 14 because I was bipolar. They had her on medication. Maybe she just flipped out. The others that do not believe she was insane at the time of the crime, that she knew what she was doing, they write, the fact that she shot her mom, came to the kitchen and was messaging someone, heard her mom screaming, and then went back to check up on her, she was fully aware of what she was doing. Another writes, oh, cry me a river. She was always trying to make herself cry, but it's not working. Sociopaths always forget to produce tears in their performances. I believe those tears are real tears. I just don't believe this was mental illness, is another comment. She cries for herself and herself only. She ugly snot cried today because it suddenly became very real for her that she will spend the rest of her life in prison. I don't know. After hearing from her therapist, nothing sounds like insanity. Sounds like a very intelligent girl who, for all intents and purposes, is now trying for some insanity defense. Still don't know if life is the answer, but she should have taken that 40-year plea. Others just focus on the evidence in the trial, like the footage of the dogs. They write, the body language of these dogs really makes it sink in for you. They instantly went from tails wagging, excited to see their owners, to scared, frantic, and confused. Animals are so perceptive.
Wait, what happened with the dog?
After the gunshots, they start pacing, like they look very anxious and stressed. Others are just using that as a chance to bully a 14-year-old. They write, "It's the chin pimples for me. Hope they sell Proactive at the commissary in prison." Others are just talking about her strange courtroom cries and smiles. They write, "It's the fake convulsions and strained face for me." Others think Carly is enjoying the trial, and they write, "Look at her. She's both horrified and fascinated by what she's done." She has been sentenced to life in prison for the murder of her mother, the attempted murder of her stepfather, and 10 years for tampering with evidence. Her attorneys have expressed disappointment, and
What temper with evidence?
hiding the cameras.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they state that Carly knows this is not the end, meaning they're going to be appealing the verdict, which could be possible. I imagine if she claims ineffective counsel, there were parts where the defense was just doing things, and I'm like, what is the purpose of this? For example, the body cam footage where Carly is arrested and her hands are being swabbed, the defense kept bringing up the fact that one of the officers muted his body cam after swabbing Carly's hands. He states that he did it because he and the other officers were talking about personnel issues, like who's going where and who's taking where who, and those are lots of officers' names that don't need to be included in this evidence, right?
Shut up.
Not like they were interacting with Carly at the time that they muted it. They were stepped off to the side. There were other officers with Carly. But the defense kept stating it was strange. It's against protocol. Is it not? Is it not? And everyone was like, I mean, it is. He did break protocol, but what does that have to do with Carly? Because it's not like he has any incentive or motive, or there's no suspicion that he was trying to help Carly, not help Carly in any way.
Yeah, it's unrelated, right?
Yes, but they were just kept going on it. Like, admit it, you broke protocol. A lot of the expert stuff didn't make sense. They state that she was diagnosed after the murder with bipolar 2 and was having auditory hallucinations her whole life. But auditory hallucinations can happen to those with bipolar 2, but aren't as common. So everything just felt very wishy-washy. I don't know. She could have bipolar 2. She could have been having auditory hallucinations, but nothing made sense. In fact, they just basically went up there and read someone the DSM-5 is what it felt like. They were like, you know what? It could have been this, which symptoms include blah, 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 blah.
DSM-5 is the
diagnostic manual for psychiatrists. It just felt not specific to Carly and just more so a regurgitation of information of things that could possibly happen to someone when they have maybe certain conditions. It just didn't make sense. And some comments just read, "This is justice. She could have admitted guilt and gotten parole after 40 years, but she didn't. She didn't admit anything, and now she gets life in prison and will never be released. She chose this." Another comment reads, "She is truly shocked. She thought because she was 14 and looks 12 that it was going to go in her favor." Another comment reads, "The thought of someone carrying their own killer in their stomach for 9 months is truly creepy to me and depressing." Another just reads, "Adult decisions have adult consequences." What are your thoughts on this case? It seems like everybody is very divided. Some people think that she should just be hospitalized. Others think that she should be acquitted. I would say most are pretty happy with this conviction, but they wonder if there's a lot of other theories roaming around. What are your thoughts? Why do you think she killed her mom? Just pure evil? Some people were saying this is like a serial killer in the making, but a lot of people were also arguing it doesn't make sense. She doesn't have these trademarks that you see in a lot of serial killers. It just feels off. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Leave it in the comments. Please stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.
The magnitude of allegations against P. Diddy just grew tenfold, as more than 100 survivors are now coming forward with even more accusations against the disgraced musician. And for the first time, we're hearing from Tony Busby, the attorney bringing these 120 new lawsuits against Diddy in a one-on-one interview. He says these suits will bring brand new shocking revelations, including Diddy's alleged sexual assault of a 9-year-old child, and on a separate occasion, the assault of a pregnant woman. But that's not all. The lawsuits will apparently divulge some high-profile celebrity names that will shock us. I'm Sierra Gillespie, and this is Law and Crime News. The hits just keep on coming against 54-year-old Sean Diddy Combs, whose fall from grace has now reached new levels. Just last week, we were reporting on the 12 civil suits filed against Diddy, and now 120 more suits are set to be filed against him in the next 30 days. All of this comes as Diddy himself is behind bars at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, having been denied bail twice. Diddy's in jail now awaiting trial on the federal charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. This after a federal grand jury indicted him nearly a year after we first heard rumblings about Diddy's alleged illegal activity. We really have to credit Cassandra Ventura, also known as the singer Cassie, for getting the ball rolling in the case against.
You never forget kindness. It becomes like a miracle.
Experience the most uplifting, moving, inspirational movie of the year.
It stays with you forever.
Whitebird.
Happy first birthday, pumpkin. There's no sweeter way to celebrate your birthday. Thank you for 30 beautiful years from all of us at Sleep Country.
Diddy. She began working in the music industry with Diddy when she was just 19 years old, and she says almost right away, Diddy began asserting control over her. The pair dated for years, and Cassie says during this time, Diddy was emotionally, physically, and sexually abusive. Cassie's lawsuit was where we first heard the term freak off. She says it started when Mr. Combs hired a man and brought the man to his home in Los Angeles. The man, Mr. Combs, and Miss Ventura wore masquerade masks and ingested drugs. Mr. Combs directed Miss Ventura to perform sexual acts with this man while Mr. Combs watched them. He masturbated while directing Miss Ventura and the man to do specific sexual acts. Mr. Combs began to call the arrangement a freak-off or FO. He would repeatedly tell Miss Ventura at random moments that he wanted an FO, and Miss Ventura was eventually expected to facilitate the location and the hiring of male sex workers. This is all laid out in Cassie's lawsuit that was filed last November. It was settled just one day after it was filed, but the damage was done. Multiple other survivors came forward over the next several months, all accusing Diddy of sexual assault. And the pattern laid out in these lawsuits was eerily similar. Diddy would drug or force these victims to consume alcohol that was oftentimes laced. After that, he would sexually assault them, sometimes as part of these freak-offs. On multiple occasions, Diddy would apparently record these sessions and then use them as blackmail to keep the victims quiet. It's ironic then that these same recordings are now being used in the federal case against Diddy. His indictment explains this, saying that when federal investigators raided 2 of Diddy's homes in March 2024, they collected digital evidence to be used in the case. If you're out and about while you're watching our video, listen up. This one is for you. I'm talking about the free app Upside that gets you cash back on daily essentials. It's something I use every time I pump my gas because it's so easy and it's free, so why not? Okay, here's what you do. You just download the Upside app and then you claim an offer for whatever you're buying. You pay as usual and then just follow the steps on the app to get paid. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on the screen and use our promo code LCNews to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. The indictment also specifically references freak-offs, calling them elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded. Federal court documents reference just one survivor in the case, labeled as Victim 1. We can't 100% confirm who that is, but an educated guess is that it's Cassie. We also can't confirm that Cassie testified in front of a grand jury that indicted Diddy, but we can confirm she was speaking with the feds before his arrest. And now it's possible that even more survivors will be speaking with the feds, and the amount of cases they're bringing forward is overwhelming. On Tuesday, Houston-based attorney Tony Buzbee announced 120 new civil lawsuits against P. Diddy that are expected to be filed over the next 30 days. Buzbee explained 60 of the survivors are women and the other 60 men. Of them, 25 alleged they were sexually assaulted as minors. More than half of these survivors already spoke out about the abuse, reporting it to the police or to hospitals. But now they're telling their stories to the world in the way of 120 separate civil lawsuits. As Busby explained, this is not a class action lawsuit, but rather each survivor will file suit against Diddy separately in the state where the incident occurred. And Busby said these assaults took place in Los Angeles, Miami, and New York. They date as far back as 1991. He says these lawsuits will describe multiple new allegations, including violent sexual assault or rape, sexual abuse, facilitating sex with controlled substances, false imprisonment, compelling prostitution, sexual misconduct, dissemination of video recordings, and sexual abuse of minors. And it's not just Diddy that's being called out in these suits. Busby says other high-profile celebrities were involved in these alleged assaults, specifically saying the names will shock you. From here, we have to dig a bit deeper. We're joined now by Tony Busby, who's the attorney representing a slew of these civil plaintiffs against Diddy. Tony, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the big question, why now? I mean, Diddy was indicted last month, but these allegations came out almost a year ago, starting in November of last year with Cassandra Ventura. So why now are these plaintiffs planning to file suit?
A spirit from Niagara worth sharing with the world. 40 Creek, believe in better.
I think it's because the indictment and then the denial of bail. You know, we had several cases before the indictment, and we were just kind of waiting to see what the federal government was going to do. We knew there was an investigation ongoing. Then when the indictment came about, and then when the arrest occurred, and then when bail was denied, I think those events led to more and more calls. And then my co-counsel, who then called me and associated me with the case and thought that this would probably be the kind of case that I should handle. When I made an announcement that I was going to pursue these cases, the floodgates really opened. In about 10-day period, we got 3,200 calls. And then from the press conference we had yesterday, we've had 12,000 calls since, I guess, in about, 24 hours. And so our Herculean task is to try to sift through every one of these calls and make sure that we are identifying those who are victims and those who are witnesses and collect evidence. I mean, we have about almost 100 people working on this task. The 120 that we announced yesterday, those are claims that we could file right now against Sean Combs, but we're trying to make sure that when we file the cases, and they're going to be filed on an individual basis, that we include every potentially liable party. And by that, I mean any entities or other individuals that either were involved, participated, facilitated, egged it on, provided the venue, benefited from it, profited from it, that sort of thing. So that's where we are now. We have 120 cases that we are preparing to file, and we're trying to sift through another 12,000 phone calls and contacts that we've received in the last 24 hours. So, you know, the volume of calls has been overwhelming, and it's been, you know, kind of shocking. But when you put it in context that we're talking about alleged behavior that occurred over 25 years with individuals that had parties. I mean, you can only imagine the amount of different types of parties that occurred. We're talking about album release parties. We're talking about the white parties you've heard about, after parties, after shows, just, you know, impromptu parties at hotels and clubs. You know, I think the indictment and the arrest kind of gave people a little bit more comfort that they had more safety and support to step forward. And I think announcing that there were 50 people that were preparing to file suit kind of made people that were on the fence, that were still scared, to step forward. Now, anytime you have a situation like this, you know, the real task is to make sure that every single person that you sign on to represent has a legitimate claim. And that's the difficulty, because one bad, you know, apple spoils the barrel, as they say. So it's kind of a balancing test, really. On the one hand, you want to absolutely, we believe victims. If you've been victimized, please step forward. This is a safe space for you. We can help you. We will help you. On the other hand, we have to make sure that we fully vet the case, and we have to make sure that it's a legitimate case. So that's the process that we're going through now. Yesterday I announced that our team intended to start filing cases within 30 days. It may be sooner than that, but I was not expecting the high volume of contact that we've gotten in the last 24 hours.
I mean, the sheer number of lawsuits that you're talking about as of yesterday, 120, to me, I'm like, wow, that is a giant number. But now you're talking about over 1,000 people that came forward, just overwhelming as you're discussing that. But let's move on to another aspect of this. A lot of people are talking about names that could come up in these lawsuits. You referenced that some of these names are pretty high profile and could shock us. What can you tell me about those names? Are there a lot of people that could be implicated in future crimes? Is it possible that the things that will be listed in these future lawsuits could be prosecuted? What can you tell me?
Well, I'm very careful to talk about whether someone did or did not commit a crime. The civil system is very different than the criminal system. The criminal authorities are very particular about which claims that they pursue because the standard of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. In the civil system, the standard of proof is more likely than not, or preponderance of the evidence. So it's a lot lower standard in the civil system. So, but to answer your question, as far as crimes, I won't comment on that. But as far as whether there will be additional individuals, people that we all know joined in some of these suits, there's no doubt that will be the case. There's no doubt that some of these events and these assaults occurred at particular people's homes, some venues, some hotels, some clubs. We know that there were people in the room when some of these things occurred. It's my view that if you participated in it, if you benefited from it, if you encouraged it, if you watched it go on and were somehow involved, whether it be even peripherally involved and did not try to stop it, especially with regard to minors, then it's my view that you have liability on the civil side. So that's what we're looking at. And obviously we want to be very careful about who we name because, I don't want, an error in that respect is not good for anyone. And I'm not going to be the person that starts naming names of potential people and smearing people for no reason, because the case is about credibility. So I have made sure that each of these people that we represent currently are people that I'm proud to represent and I believe in, and I believe in their case. But I want to make sure that we include every potential liable party when we file the case.
These names that will be included, the ones that you are willing to include in these suits, why will they surprise us so much? Is it because they're beloved people in the Hollywood universe?
I've gotten this question so many times, and I know, and you're doing your job. Obviously, you want to know who they are, some kind of facts, so you can kind of figure out who they are. I think I'll just leave it at this. I mean, it was a secret that everyone knew about what was going on with regard to these parties and some of the things that happened in these so-called after parties. There was a pattern in practice, custom of behavior that went on for many, many years. The MO of how it went down was pretty much the
Bada bing, bada boo.
Some friend group.
Alright, I'm gonna keep animating. I'm gonna put on another video or clip listen to while working on this. But yeah, I got pretty much the basic animation done. Like the little wink and dip. A cute little animation, it's like an emote kind of. It's like a GIF, whatever you call it. Alright, let's keep going. What should I listen to? Alright, we'll keep going. I think right now I'm gonna try to add the background. I've been having trouble in the background to go in. I have to line it up. We're gonna add some more special effects and stuff too. Yeah, that's just a basic animation. Keep going.
Bing, bada boo.
A giant human-sized Stanley Cup. You would need a ladder to get to the very top of the cup. You fill this room-sized cup with liquid nitrogen and you lower the temperature to negative 320 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you jump inside. You would not be able to survive more than a few seconds in this type of environment, but that is the secret to immortality. That is how you live forever. Dippin' Dots, they actually make their ice cream that way. You know those little yummy ice balls that taste like rainbow sherbet? They're flash frozen in this cryogenic process that uses liquid nitrogen. I mean, you could be a living, walking Dippin' Dots ice cream ball for the incredibly reasonable price of $200,000. But if you don't have $200,000 and you have perhaps closer to $100,000, you could just flash freeze your head, keep it in the cooler. They'll find you a new body. They'll wake you up, good morning, find you a new body, and attach you. The whole point of cryogenics is that perhaps one day we as humans develop the science to bring people back, revive patients, and eventually even cure them and treat them of the diseases that killed them in the first place. To resuscitate, then save them. That's the game plan. But you can't bring back a clump of ashes or a body that's turned into fertilizer inside of a coffin. You can only bring back bodies that have been preserved, kept in the freezer for a rainy day. It's like emergency prepping, but by freeze drying your whole body.
Is that like something that's being done right now? Like, is that true?
Yes, there's a few companies around the world that'll do it. One of the biggest ones is in the United States.
Wow. So like billionaires.
Yes.
They're frozen.
Yes, they're frozen. You could even set your life insurance beneficiary to be that company so that you can get frozen if you don't have billions of dollars at your disposal.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the whole argument that some people believe in this concept is there are millions of people who are alive today who they were once frozen. They were frozen sperms or eggs, frozen embryos. And we found the science, right? So why can't we find the science later? They write, in a sense, those people were cryogenically frozen and yet they are alive today. Listen, I'm not saying I support this argument. That's just the argument that they have. But a lot of people think the whole situation is kind of eerie. First of all, at that price point, only the wealthy have a shot at being immortal. Second of all, it just feels wrong. Like it's going against human principles. Why do people have to try and be immortal? Third, it's just kind of plain stupid is what people say. One cryobiologist says, there's absolutely no current way, no proven scientific way to actually freeze a whole human down to that temperature without completely destroying, and I mean obliterating the tissues. So there's actually no proof that you're even preserving anything. But wealthy people everywhere are lining up to freeze their bodies anyway. Side note, they're also freezing their pets to take with them into the afterlife. They think if it works, it works. If it doesn't, they died anyway. What's the problem? But in Taiwan, a wealthy boy is frozen for a completely different reason. For the past year, in this small morgue in Taiwan, he's not cryogenically frozen, but it almost feels like it because he's kept in limbo. An 18-year-old's body has been kept in the morgue freezer, just floating around. May 2023. 18-year-old Lai suspiciously fell from the 10th floor balcony. The reason that his death has been driving Taiwan and netizens all over the world absolutely insane is the fact that every single thing up to his death is suspicious. A week prior to Lai's death, he mysteriously inherits $15.5 million, or 500 million Taiwanese dollars. 2 hours before his death, 18-year-old Lai marries a 26-year-old man that he's only met twice. Then he dies. Not only is his death this confusing question of what actually happened, but also now, who gets his $15.5 million fortune? As always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. Just a few disclaimers for today's case. This episode includes mentions of mental health struggles, discussions of alleged self-exit. If these topics are uncomfortable or triggering, please take care of yourself. Reach out to a friend. We will see you in the next one. So with that being said, let's get started. There's a lot of weird things that happen when you work in a morgue. People might not know this, but bodies move when they're dead. When gases are being released by a corpse, think of it like a balloon. They're going to make noises. They're going to move their body just because the gas is being slowly released. It can make corpses moan, shift positions. Sometimes they'll even try to sit up suddenly. And then the smell. I mean, yeah, obviously the smell of death, which is not pleasant and people talk about it all the time. But also, one morgue worker states, you have smelt nothing until you have smelt the farts of the dead. Safe to say, being a morgue worker is not an easy job, but even for morgue workers, this incident in Taiwan is weird. This past week, in this small tiny morgue in Taiwan, it's been pretty busy. The first major blow was a week ago. A neighborhood Grandpa Lai, had passed. Everyone in this town knew Grandpa Lai. He lived in this small 2-story resident building in this neighborhood. I mean, the house is nothing grand. It's like 60 years old, the house itself. But not in the original Spanish-style home, selling above market price. Literally in the very humble way. It's 60 years old, and it looks 60 years old. Grandpa and Grandma Lai, they raised their kids in that house. And now they have this grandchild, Lai. Now, Grandma Lai, you would see her every weekend just working at the market, selling produce in one of her stalls. Unless you knew the family well, you would never even suspect that they were one of the wealthiest families in the entire neighborhood. Grandpa Lai, you would see him walking in and out of this house wearing the same t-shirt, shorts, and sandals. He only rode around in his bicycle, not even a motorbike. A bicycle. He just had 4 sets of clothes that he would change in and out of. Every 4 days, you would see him in the same exact outfit. And then when he would shower after a long day, he absolutely refuses to use the shower head. He thinks it wastes more water. So he would instead grab one of those large buckets, collect the water in there, get a pail to collect the water, and then he would use the pail to scoop the water over himself. That way you don't have the water running the whole time. Well, not for longer. Last week, he had fallen in the shower and passed away. His body was cremated by this very morgue. That was not an easy case. It was very sad.
What happened? He just fell and died?
Yeah, he was very old. He had a lot of health conditions, and then he fell, and I think it made things worse. So that's why they say when you get older, a slip and fall is sometimes a death sentence for people.
So it wasn't anything strange?
No, he didn't die mysteriously, but it was overall a very sad case. But in morgues, you become very familiar with death. All you can hope is, well, he was old. Hopefully he lived a very full life. The morgue director, he runs over to Gao. This is a week after Grandpa Lai has been cremated. Gao is this famous forensic expert. Mr. Gao, you have been doing this for 40 years. I have been in this field for 30 years. Yes, I've seen many cases, but this is not a normal case. This body is very strange. Gao is like,
who is this? Morgue's manager?
Yes, he works at the morgue, and he's like, something weird is going on. I've been running this morgue for the past 30 years, and I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like this. And Gao is like, okay, well, what's going on? The injuries just don't make sense. I don't understand how this could have happened. Gao is confused. What do you mean by that? This 18-year-old boy fell from 10 stories tall, from the 10th floor balcony. In terms of broken bones, he just has a broken arm. That's it, a minor broken arm, not even a severely mangled arm. I just don't believe that he has fallen from the 10th floor. It doesn't make any sense to me. But the police are saying he fell from 10 stories tall and passed away. But more than that, this child's grandfather, Grandpa Lai, had passed away a week ago, and he just inherited $15.5 million. He suspiciously dies a week after becoming one of the wealthiest residents in this town? Tell me how that makes sense. They decide to alert the next of kin. And when you think of the next of kin for an 18-year-old who passed away, you're thinking father, mother, some sort of parental figure, right? But in this case, it's tricky because this 18-year-old also has a husband. He just got married 2 hours before he died, so who is next of kin right now? May 4th, 2023, so over a year ago from today, around 11 a.m., the local police in Taiwan get a call. Hi, there's a man. What is the man doing? Like, what's going on? He's fainted on the street near the apartment building. I don't really know what's going on. Just please hurry. It's a very vague phone call. Authorities rush to the apartment complex, and clearly there's a medical emergency. Somebody needs their attention. They run down the sidewalk, and there is a man. I mean, you could hardly say a man. He looks like a boy, a very young boy. And the way that he's collapsed, fainted onto the ground is a bit strange. He's laying mostly on this little grass patch next to the apartment building. His head is a little bit on the sidewalk. He's wearing black shorts, a black shirt. The way he's laying, though, is kind of like one of those crime scene body tape cutouts. He's sprawled onto the ground. Some witnesses state he looked like he was just taking a nap. He laid down on the grass in the sun, fell asleep. That's his posture.
Yo. Did you pick up milk?
Do you see milk in the fridge?
No.
Then I didn't pick up the milk.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Annie. You don't have cash? Let's go to the ATM.
I got a kid who wants someone who speaks Russian.
My Russian is terrible. I can't even roll my R's.
No.
Я просто хотел тебе предложить. Ты хочешь быть эксклюзивно со мной?
15. Cash up front.
Deal.
Deal.
If I get married to an American, I wouldn't have to go back to Russia.
Okay, so who'd you marry?
And sure. But once you look closely, you see he's not waking up. One of his sandals is in the bushes behind him. Another one is near his body. The glasses are not on his face. They're laying next to him in the grass. The police look at the guy next to the boy on the ground. He's 30. He's wearing this like red, white, and black shirt. What's going on? Are you the one that called? I live in this apartment building. I was just walking by and I saw him laying here like this and he's unresponsive, so... They call in medical professionals. They rush the boy on the ground to the hospital. Doctors try resuscitating him multiple times, but after all the unsuccessful attempts, he is pronounced dead. The police don't even know this guy's name yet. They don't find a wallet or ID in his pocket. He's effectively a John Doe, ready to be taken to the morgue. The official report on the police reads, Lu Dao, which basically just means body collapsed suddenly on the ground. I mean, this is a very vague way of describing an incident. It literally means body on the ground, injured, maybe deceased, could be from heat exhaustion, could be from a car accident, could be from murder. It's very vague. It doesn't tell you the method or anything specific. It's just a body on the ground. Yet the police conclude that John Doe likely passed away from an accident, slipped from a balcony or the roof, or passed by self-exit. There's clearly no signs of foul play. That's what they think. There's no signs of physical assault or defensive wounds. Nothing. They do a brief, slightly non-existent sweep of the area, get all the witness statements that they can from all the residents that could have potentially heard or seen something, and they call it a day. They're rather nonchalant about this whole thing, but some of the neighbors are not. They're taking this very seriously. One of the neighbors was certain that something very strange was going to happen that day. They could feel it. And how exactly did you know that something was going to happen like this? Well, you know what it means when a snake shows up in your dream? It's just not good luck. It's a bad omen. It's just, we've been having a lot of dreams about snakes. There was one snake who kept following us around, and then there was another snake who was following us around, and then it split up into 3 snakes. One snake split into thirds, and then 3 snakes evolved, and they started chasing us. I mean, it's got to be a bad omen, right? Then the same day we woke up, around 11 a.m., you know, the couple, the neighbors, they coincidentally had been out on their balcony on the 9th floor and heard this loud bang from outside. And they quickly peer over the balcony. They don't see any sort of body. So they are looking over. They don't see anything. And they thought, okay. They move on. And now the police are here. And someone has died. They've also heard after the fact, the boy that died, he has a motorbike, right? The bike license plate reads 9513. Could you say that, please? 9513.
9513.
Some said it's for his mom's birthday, right? But you know what it also sounds like? Save me, doctor. Say 9513 and then say save me, doctor.
9513救我一生. That's crazy.
The police thought, okay, that makes sense. You guys are crazy. There are no clear signs of foul play. The person likely jumped, self-exited. The neighbors heard a loud bang around the same time. Case closed. Nothing more to see here. Just an unfortunate situation that needs no more investigating. John Doe's body is already at the morgue ready to be cremated when the police start getting some frantic calls. A woman named Chen starts freaking out, calling the police nonstop to file a missing persons report. My 18-year-old son, Lai, has been missing since this morning. I can't get in touch. I've tried calling. Nothing. He's not responding. It's been half a day, ma'am, that he's been gone. Okay, he's 18. He could be out with some friends. This does not really seem to warrant our involvement right now. You don't get it. Today was the day that he was going to carry his grandfather to his final resting spot. His grandfather died a week ago. We held a funeral, and now he's going to take his ashes to be placed into his final memorial. Mother Chen tries to explain that her son's grandfather, her father-in-law, had passed a week ago, and this is a very, very big deal, and absolutely nothing would stand in front of Lai's commitment of being the urn bearer and bringing his grandpa to his resting place. This is a huge deal. He did not take this responsibility lightly, so for him to just disappear and skip an event like this does not make sense. Every single call she's made to him has gone straight to voicemail. This is very out of character. The police ask what he was wearing. She responds, black shorts and a black shirt. And it's finally clicking in the police's mind. Okay, wait. The person that we picked up earlier today, the one that passed away in front of the apartment building, maybe it's him. So they ask Chen to come to the morgue, and that's when she sees her child. It's her little boy, Lai, her 18-year-old son. The police try to tell her, we think he may have taken his own life. What are you saying? That can't be me. She's explaining to them, and she says this over and over again. Trust me, he would never do something like that. What are you saying to me right now? And she wants to know, what was he even doing in that apartment complex to begin with? This doesn't make any sense. You need to investigate.
What do you mean by that? He doesn't live there?
No, this is not where they live. They live in a 2-story house that's 60 years old.
Oh.
The police find out that's where his husband lives. And now Mother Chen is even more confused. You're talking about my 18-year-old son, husband? Like, what do you mean husband? First of all, he's not gay. Second of all, he's not married. What husband are you talking about? The police pull up the records. Just 2 hours before he died, he went and got married to a man that lived in that very apartment building. I mean, there's just no way, right? 2 hours before he suspiciously dies. So Chen is demanding that the authorities look into it. None of this makes sense. First of all, who even is the husband? Second of all, whoever it is needs to be investigated. Because just a week ago, Lai inherited $15.5 million. So this so-called husband now stands to inherit all of it.
Wow.
If the police go off the timeline that the mother gave them, that means 18-year-old Lai left the house around 7 a.m. to speak with one of the family's property managers about his new asset transfers. The property manager, his name is Junior, and his dad, Shah Sr., so Shah Sr., Shah Jr. is how they're referred to, right? Junior has been working with the family for 20 years. He's 26, but his dad has been involved with the Lai family for the past 2 decades. So this is nothing out of the ordinary. Likely there's going to be a lot more meetings now because 18-year-old Lai has to learn how to handle this massive real estate portfolio. Chen tells her son, be home by 9 a.m. Be back in 2 hours so that we can put your grandfather in his final resting place. But instead, at 9 a.m., Lai is at the courthouse getting married to this 26-year-old property manager. Lai is
Junior?
18. Yes. The property manager, Junior, is 26 years old.
Wait. So Lai is going to finish the asset transfer.
It's pretty much done. But now the property manager is like, I'm going to show you how to manage this whole massive portfolio you just inherited. But instead, they go to the marriage license office, get married.
What?
It's so weird. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of questions the police want to ask this new husband of Lai's. The first being, why didn't you acknowledge that your husband was the man on the ground when you called 911? This was the man standing next to his body calling 911. He was one of the witnesses in the red, white, black shirt. Why did he not mention at all, hey, that's my husband that I just married 2 hours ago?
That is so crazy.
In fact, the authorities remember asking him, do you know this man? And he said no, he did not. He shook his head and just stood there watching as medical professionals strapped him onto a stretcher and drove him away. He never asked to, what, can I be in the ambulance? Which hospital is he going to? Is he going to be okay? Why would he? He's a complete stranger. But he's not. He's his husband. Why would you not acknowledge your own husband to the authorities? What are you hiding? In fact, now that the police think about it, there's so many questions to be asked. Like, why would an 18-year-old marry a 26-year-old? How long have they been dating before getting married? Why did the 18-year-old even inherit so much money? Why would an 18-year-old need to own 15 separate properties amounting to a $15.5 million real estate portfolio? Who is Lai, and how on earth is he so rich? The Lai family has a lot of secrets. But the one thing that's not kept well hidden is Grandpa Lai has a favorite grandchild. He loves his grandbaby Lai. He's even nicknamed him Little Lai. It's argued Grandpa Lai loves Little Lai more than his own children, his other grandchildren. I mean, Lai is the clear favorite. It's not even a competition. But even then, it doesn't make sense that Lai would be the sole heir to the entire family fortune unless Grandpa Lai and his direct children did something very horrendous. So Grandpa Lai has 5 adult children. 2 sons, 3 daughters. None of them got any of his money. It all went to his grandchild, Lai.
Does he have other grandchild?
Yes. So none of this makes sense. Why did it all go to just one person? And typically, even if you want it to go to one grandchild, you might give it to your child first, and then when they pass it on to their child. This is not very customary. And especially in very traditional Asian families like the Lais, someone might split up the inheritance to be quite equal for all their children. Some might choose to give more to their sons than their daughters, right? But it's just, this is out of the norm. Now, Grandpa Lai literally made his fortune in the most normal but also unhinged way possible. Just like a little side note, he used to work in the rice milling business with his wife, Grandma Lai. They would sit there all day long removing husks from the rice grain.
Why are we expected to use the same shampoo for straight, wavy, and curly hair? Like, your hair deserves better. Stop wasting time and money on hair products that don't work for your specific hair type. Most people misdiagnose their hair type after using the wrong products for years. Your dry ends and unwanted frizz might actually be wavy hair. Pros' hair consultation helps you discover your unique hair type, and they listen to your hair concerns like greasy roots, frizz, or dryness. Then they'll create the perfect custom formula to meet your unique hair goals if you've got 1A locks or 2C waves. The before and afters speak for themselves. Flat hair, volumized, waves, defined, curls, moisturized. So it's not you, it's your hair products. Upgrade your hair care to pros.
Please don't skip us, because if you skip us, you're denying us and our family and the chance of...
Because every single rice grain has an outer shell layer that we don't eat. You got to remove it, right? For that one singular grain of rice. That was Grandpa Lai and Grandma Lai's job. That's all they did every single day. And when they finally had enough money saved up, Grandpa Lai starts buying up property in the area. And this was at the time when this area was not popping off. So he's buying cheap property that he did not think would ever go up to this value. The area gets gentrified, and now he's worth over $15.5 million USD. Which is 500 million Taiwanese dollars.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, but, you know, Grandpa Lai's first 2 kids, they're sons, which means everybody expected to get the most inheritance for those 2 boys. They got nothing. Neither did his daughters. Instead, every single penny in property is transferred directly to his grandson Lai, which feels a bit reckless to outsiders. I mean, I'm sure Grandpa Lai's sons and daughters are of age. They're quite mature at this point, likely have their own families. But instead, he gives everything to an 18-year-old grandson, and it's not even in a trust. Because sometimes you put the money in a trust and you're like, every month you only get $1,000. No, it's just like, here you go. You have all the deeds to the properties. You could do whatever you want with them at this point, but you're 18.
Is he in school, the 18-year-old?
He just graduated high school. He's about to go to college, which is very, I would say it's kind of a dangerous thing to do and not put it into a trust. It's just not the best age, I think, to inherit that much money. In terms of estate planning, this is not the norm. So why didn't everything get passed down to Lai's father instead of Lai? Well, because at that point, Lai's dad is dead. Yeah. You could kind of tell that something odd was going on with the Lai family. One day there's so many residents in the Lai house, then the next, only 3 people are left in that house. Maybe everyone moved to a bigger city, or maybe something strange happened. In the Lai family, like I said, you have Grandma and Grandpa Lai. They're 5 adult children, 2 sons, 3 daughters. And it seems like since they were young, Grandpa Lai was the most worried for his second son. Let's call him Sam. His second son was later diagnosed with an intellectual disability, which made it a bit trickier for him to have quote unquote normal social interactions, if you will, which I think is fine. There's so many ways he can find joy through social interactions that aren't the quote normal way. But Grandpa Lai is so insistent. He's like, my son needs to have a normal traditional lifestyle. He needs to marry a woman and have children with this woman. That is it. I'm not taking anything else. It seems like his son is not even interested. I also don't know if the intellectual disability would impact his ability to consent. Let's hope not. I don't know how severe it is. But regardless, Grandpa Lai is on this mission to marry his second son off. All of his other adult children are getting married. His second son needs a wife. He flies to Indonesia, finds a random woman that he thinks his son may or may not like, brings her back to Taiwan, has her marry his second son. The two get married. She does end up having a child with the second son, Sam, a daughter, and the whole marriage starts falling apart. I mean, it's doomed from the start. The two have no romantic or emotional interest in each other. They're just strangers who got married. The woman from Indonesia was at least promised a life with a bit more financial security, which is great, right? But like, at what cost? She would later say living in Taiwan as an Indonesian woman was very isolating. It's hard for her to make friends. She doesn't have people she can relate to. And honestly, she hates her father-in-law. Grandpa Lai sucks. At first, she thought he was the world's biggest micromanager, which is already bad. Anytime she would be alone in the kitchen or in the restroom, she would notice out of the corner of her eye, he's snooping on her. He's literally peeping on her. And she thought, okay, he's making sure I'm doing everything to standard the way he likes it. But eventually it evolves away from micromanaging, and it feels much more like harassment. Even when he's caught, they would make eye contact, and this man would not stop. It drove her insane. She would eventually divorce Samuel, her husband, and she feels no affection towards him or anybody else. She leaves her daughter with the Lais and flees back to Indonesia. 3 years later, Grandpa Lai brings a new woman into the house to marry his son, Chen from China. She also knows very little about her new future husband, but she marries him anyway for her own reasons. Initially, everyone in the family thought, this is good. Finally, the family is coming back together. Everything feels a lot more settled in our hearts now. She's a good addition to the family. She gives birth to a son, Lai. Grandpa Lai and little Lai are two peas in a pod. Everybody's happy. Everybody is content, except for Grandma Lai. She's looking at Lai. She's looking at Chen. She's looking at her second son. She's looking at her husband. This is not right. About a year before Chen gave birth, Grandma Lai started feeling this sneaking suspicion that there was someone evil inside of her home. You ever just feel uneasy around someone? You can't really figure out why, but it feels like the way they carry themselves. They act like they know something that you don't know, is the feeling. But maybe Grandma Lai is thinking way too deep into it, and she's just so traumatized by what happened with her previous daughter-in-law that she's overanalyzing every single person inside this house. Well, one day, Grandma Lai comes back from grocery shopping, and she goes to the back door. She yanks the handle. Nothing. The handle doesn't get, the door's locked. This is very, very strange. Grandma Lai always, for the past decades that she's been living here, leaves this door unlocked when she goes grocery shopping so that when she comes back, it's easy for her to open. She doesn't have to pull out her keys with all these groceries around her arm. Never in all the years that she's been living here has the door been locked when she goes grocery shopping. She's about to knock or shout for someone to open the door for her, but she decides against it. Instead, she gently places all the bags onto the ground, goes to check the side window of the house. She stacks 2 chairs on top just so she can try and see. She doesn't end up seeing anything much, but she could hear everything. You can clearly hear the sound of the bed moving in a rhythmic pace and soft moaning. The only people home right now are Chen, her son's new wife, and Grandpa Lai, her husband. But because she didn't record it, she didn't even see it with her own 2 eyes, nobody really believed her. Or perhaps she was gaslit into thinking that she imagined it all. And now she's looking at Lai, she's looking at Chen, she's looking at her son, she's looking at her husband. And it is so very clear that Grandpa Lai does not just favor Lai because he's the newest grandchild. He favors Lai because he is his child. That's his son, not his grandson.
Whoa. So the grandpa is actually the dad.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I see.
Yeah.
And the grandma knows about this.
Yes. Well, she knew that a year before Chen gave birth, that she heard very suspicious things. She thought she was going crazy, somehow convinces herself to get rid of this thought. And then a year later, Chen gives birth to a baby boy, and she's analyzing the whole situation, and she's like, this is weird.
So this is shared by grandma?
Yeah, this was actually shared by grandma during a court process that we're about to get into, but it's now becoming redug up now that 18-year-old Lai has been found suspiciously dead.
Okay, so this is not like public information. This
No.
is information that grandma finally shared today.
Oh yeah, this is not public information. I mean, they try. It's a little bit public in the fact that I'm sure if you go down, I don't know Taiwan's FOIA process, if they have some sort of process where you can get access to court documents. I don't know if this would be sealed court documents. I don't know the laws over there, but it did take place in court. There was a whole court proceeding at the time, 18 years ago, but not many people knew about it. It was not common knowledge.
So, like the way grandma is sharing this story, it made it sound like she didn't confront anyone, say, hey, this is your son, right?
She's about to.
Right.
Yes.
I'm saying when they were all alive, it
Oh.
wasn't like in the whole family, it wasn't like everyone treated him like he's the son. He was still treated as a grandson.
Well, once everybody...
Alrighty. This one we're gonna end here today. Yeah, just a little GIF or a little animation of Moo Deng winking. Just have a little fun with this. Hope you guys like it. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Hope you guys have a good one. I'm Giovanni Hall Art. Like we see, if you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, Twitch, YouTube, all that good stuff, links are in the bio. Have a good one. Bye.